Well, hello, Andy Bassist, coming at you once again. Sorry for the long hiatus of video. Life has been life. Figured I've been posting like loads of just gratuitous board shots because on my Instagram, follow me here, because I've been changing a lot. I've simplified a lot, even though it's probably not simple to a lot of people, but the signal path is sort of, a lot of things have been removed from the last sort of board demo that I did on the channel. Sort of I've taken a few bits out that now I just use purely in the studio or like for recording stuff. I don't actually use them in a live context yet, and I really wanted to put them in like certain pedals like this guy that now has a unicorn on it thanks to my daughter, the Boss SL2. It is awesome, it sounds cool as, but for the minute I just haven't been able to get it without forcing it at the end of a song or something like that. I haven't been able to actually get it into a song that we've written yet. So it was just sat underneath the board, hooked up to MIDI, and with MIDI commands going to turn it on and off, and just a lot of, pointless processing power and mind power going into hooking it up every time, or hooking it up and never using it. So that is still around, and it will be going on new recordings when they are happening, because it does a really cool thing. Obviously, like people who don't know the SL2, it's like a pattern tremolo kind of thing. So in that regards, here is a picture of the current layout of the board. And now we're just going to go through some sounds. Now, they are at the minute sort of what I have hooked up. Some people will say there's way too many big muffs on the board. You guys are no fun. So let's just get past that. With people who are going to say, you only need one distortion. It's a personal choice. Let's move on. Just to say the rig, I have my Dunable R2 DE into the board. All the time there is a compressor, Origin Effects compressor at the end of the chain, and a Boss Space Echo, the new little one in the MIDI box, RE2, at the end of the chain, just adding a little bit of ambience and a little bit of reverb. That only affects the signal that would go to the amp. We'll get into that in a minute. My amp is a Ashdown Little Giant. I'm recording straight out of that today into Ableton, and then I've got a 2 notes like studio PV 215 Black Widow like IR on it, on the DI, to sort of make it a little bit less fizzy and much nicer sounding for recording. Obviously live it goes into a PA, which is speakers, whatnot, and it sounds really nice. So this is what I call the clean signal, which is basically so this is my clean signal. Now what that is I basically split the signal in my ES5, and I have a Fuzz Broke Dick Peanut Gallery, which is like a preamp pedal with sort of really cool. It's got a post-circuit volume control, so that you can obviously, like, you're not cranking the gain in the preamp to get volume. So it's very cool. That runs alongside my clean sound at all time. Well, every sound that you're going to hear, it's always on, running in parallel. And in this preset, what I have is the Artificial Blonde by JHS, which is a vibrato running in the opposite parallel channel. In parallel with a clean signal or any other signal, you will get a chorus effect, because that is what is happening in your chorus pedal. So I used to have a Boss PS2 doing that job, but it was a real waste of such a cool pedal. That's probably going to go back on the board at some point. But yeah, so this is So that modulation that you hear is the artificial blonde, and it's really cool because the artificial blonde, for those who don't know, it's Madison Cunningham's, like a guitar player's signature pedal from JHS, and it has two, like you have switchable A and B sounds in it, so you can go from this sound to something like this. And back again, literally at the switch of a button. So you can go from like a heavy chorus to a much nicer, like more light and more subtle chorus, which I really like because I have their Unicorn, which is their like vibe pedal, but it does a vibrato thing, and I did use that for a little bit, but I actually wanted the two sounds kind of thing, so we have done enough blabbering. That is my clean sound, which if anybody knows my band called Stealth Moose, that is a sound that I would use for like the very tooly parts in Third of the First. So. And for those of you who are thinking something sounds a bit funny, it's because I always have as well. So my bass goes into a Pigtronics gatekeeper for gating and whatnot for the high gain, which you will see why in a minute. And it goes, then it splits in a TU3, and part of that goes to an SY200, which again we'll get to in a minute. And the other half goes into a DoD meat box, and then that splits by a TRS. All the clean signal goes into the ES5, and the distorted signal, or the affected, like the sub, goes out into a DI box, which is at the top of the board, and that goes out into front of house. So what you're hearing is what the front of house gets, which is they get a sub signal which they can mix in just enough to have the bass maintain a certain area of the mix and a certain low end. Necessarily they can dial in and out if they like it or if they don't like it, i.e. maybe their subs aren't that great, they can dial it out a little bit and just have the normal bass sound which has enough low end in it. It's not used as a clean band, it's just there to support, and I really like how it sounds. And it doesn't far out or do weird notes. It's not set super subby, it's just enough. So that's in there the whole time. In isolation, it sounds a little something like this. So that's what it sounds like on its own, which sounds bizarre and a bit weird, but that is what it sounds. It's a very cool sound, like I say. I really enjoy having that. It makes me less worried about my distortions not having enough low end in them, even though now we're getting onto distortions, they all go through a dirt fixer by Damnation Audio. So this is my big muff, my NYC big muff. Which isn't very gainy at all. It's only on about a quarter. It's just doing a nice crunchy thing, which I like what big muffs do on bass. Some will hate that. I really like it. It's really your problem. If you don't like it, we'll move on. But yeah, like I say, that's in there. All these FX pedals, all these my dirt pedals, basically, bar the Black Emperor that you can see, are in the loop of the ML5 Morningstar, which is in the loop of the Dirt Fixer, if that makes sense. So Dirt Fixer in the loop, in one of the loops of the ES5, the ML5 in the loop of that, and then all my dirt pedals in that ML5, and it switches through MIDI through all of them, so that I don't need to use 5 loops for all my dirt pedals. I can just use 1 loop for 4 dirt pedals and switch in between them. And one of them, like the Cosmic Trigger, is a gain pedal, or a distortion, but I use it. It's more of a preamp based on like a trainer, so. And a trainer and acoustic, if they had a baby. And from there we go into the Fosis Bongripper. I approve greatly of that pedal. It has been on everything I've done basically for the last 4 years since I managed to get hold of it. I had a V1, and I got rid of it stupidly, and then I managed to get hold of the version 2, which has the boost on it. And yeah, they're just sick. For anybody who doesn't know, this is the Fosis Bongripper. It is a parallel distortion. The full name is Bongripper Parallel Distortion. It's basically their demon, and at the time it's rat tail, cat tail, however you look at it. Basically, in parallel, you've only got gain and volume for each. I think there are more toggles and there are more switches and stuff inside. But at the minute, it's just set at what the guys from Bongripper, the band, wanted it set, 'cause it's their signature pedal. It sounds just ridiculous. Like, how can you not like that as a bass distortion? And now, this is where we probably need to bring in another little segment, because this is the first sound where I have my SY200 running as well. Now, again, this is something that's quite subtle. I just put it into the PA out of a DI box and let the front of house guys sort it out. So I just let them use as little or as much of it as what you want. So this is what it sounds like in isolation. You might be able to hear it now in the mix more than what you could before, when now you know what you're listening for. It's a bit of top end says. It does sort of, there's a lot of low end in it as well. But it tracks really, really well, and it just adds and makes the distortion thicker and more interesting, because it kind of sounds like we have a keys player matching what I'm doing, basically, which is kind of what a keys player would do. Apart from sort of big chordy stuff that I obviously do not do I do in some songs, but not in that many. There's only sort of 1 or 2 where I do any fake pad stuff with delay and reverb, but at the minute that's not in the set, so I haven't actually got any sounds set up for that. It's in the works though. So the next sound is a big fuzz sound. Now obviously I have my EHX Big Muff, but I also have a Blue Colander Stomp Boxes Black Emperor, which is an astoundingly good, ridiculously good Russian muff, basically. It is a clone, I think it's a V7, the black Russian muff. Yeah. And it sounds like this. It makes a bit of noise, like obviously when you're playing, you don't hear that, and that's also because I've got a reverb on as well. What I do also have set up, obviously that's got the SY200 and the sub going as well. I also have a RV500 on the desk over here, which you probably can't see, that I'm putting the loop of my Ashdown, so that if I want, and I control it via MIDI, and if I want to add even more reverb, I can add more reverb to the big fuzz sound to make it sort of sit back and really get really nice and just full in the low end and really fill out that space. Because at the moment, you know, I've tried really hard to just stay in my corridor and like not get. I don't want to get in the way of the guitars with my fuzz sound, but it needs to be big and supportive. So. So yeah, that does that. So just to show off that reverb, I figured we'd go back to a clean sound where you can... I have some reverb, and obviously you can hear the space echo doing an echo. That's with the... Obviously, when you go up high, you can really hear that sub. Which I enjoy. Some will hate and think, well, why? But it's probably why at the minute, I used to always have an octave pedal. At the minute, I don't have an octave pedal because when I throw an octave pedal on that as well, with the sub, things get really mushy. And... you know, there's enough low end going on there with a big... if I normally only would use distortion with the big fuzz sound, you know, there's enough low end going on in that sound that I don't really need to add an octave on, or I don't feel like I want to add an octave on at the minute. So I don't have one on the board, which feels very, very strange. Okay, then at the minute we got one more sound, which is sort of one that I use for really intense parts or bits where I really need to stand out. At the minute, there is just it's basically for one sound in a song called One Day, where I do a sort of solo lead little section after Darren has done his sort of rappy vocal, just in the middle of the outro basically. And it's got the Delfego, and I think it's got the Black Emperor, but we will check. And it sounds like this. So that actually has only got the Delfego, which is a Sutton Industries fuzz, like it's like a bass muff on steroids really, and it's got the SY200, but it's doing a octave up sound, really pretty weird octave up sound, and it's got the sub underneath it and everything, and it's got the artificial blonde on it as well. It's giving it a little bit of a modulation and a little bit of fuzz, and it just kicks it through the mix basically. So yeah, that is all of those sounds. That is not the greatest demo of any of these pedals. If you want, I basically have individual demos of all of the pedals bar the big box EHX and the Sutton Industries Delfego, but other than that, there are demos of every pedal that has been on. So yeah, what I'll do now is I'll just play through them in order of sort of I call it gain staging. Some people think they all sound the same, but they do sound different to me. So let's get into that. We'll go through from clean all the way up to that Delfego sound again. Cheers, guys. Until next time.